Hello, everyone. This is a very special episode because this is episode 100 of the Redefining Wisdom podcast. And it's so wild to just think about that number. And if I'm honest with you, I almost didn't record this episode. Not because I didn't have anything to say, but because I wasn't sure what I wanted to talk about. See, I was debating whether I should use one of my interviews with one of the guests and put it as episode 100. But part of me wanted to do a reflection of my own journey, a reflection of how far I've come. Because if I'm honest, for most of my life, I've downplayed my own achievements. And I think I'm not the only one there. I think that a lot of us reach a milestone, a goal, and immediately feels like, you know what? Anybody could have done that. Or a lot of people have already done that. So might as well keep going. And we fail to even give ourselves some grace. We fail to even recognize the discipline and the hard work we have put in our own projects or even in our own goals. Sure, a lot of people have over 100 episodes, even over 1,000 episodes. But how many podcasts out there quit before episode 20 or episode 50 or episode 100? Many, many more. And this is not just to showcase, oh, look at me, I have 100 episodes, but to give some perspective that there are many things that you're probably doing right now that you have downplayed it because we tend to compare ourselves with people who have achieved more. And obviously, if those people have achieved 10 times, 1,000 times more than what we have, then ours is just a lame thing to celebrate. But we fail to look back or to look around and see so many others who quit before we did, or those who never even started out of fear. So I just wanted to take a moment for myself and to really appreciate this because 100 sounds wild and crazy to me. Because I was just looking back at the episodes, and out of the 100 episodes, including this one, 10 were solo episodes. Shorter episodes where I would share a little bit of my life or my opinions or my takes or some wisdom or some reflections I had. But 90 other episodes were with guests. I interviewed 90 different people from all across the world. People that were from South America, in Australia, in Africa, in Asia, in Europe, in Canada, in here in the US, for all around the world. And even just thinking about it is mind boggling to me because if you have listened any of the episodes on the podcast or if you have been part of this journey, you would know. But for those who don't, I share this a lot that I grew up with a heavy stutter. I had very severe social anxiety, shyness, introversion. I always felt like the outsider in any group. I felt like outcasted most of the times. And this happened for most of my life until the last, whatever, 3 or 4 years where things started changing in my life. But to imagine me talking, having conversations with strangers online through a camera, through a video call for more than an hour, having incredibly insightful conversations that we even lose track of time with people that I've never met before. It would have been wild to my younger self. It would have been wild even to my 30-year-old self now that I'm 34. So it's been a very fulfilling process, not easy. But once again, I wanted to take this moment to reflect and to give myself a pat on the back. And I'm saying this even though I cringe at me saying that, is because I think that many of us need that. Many of us need to recognize ourselves and the things that we have accomplished. Because it's easier to wait until we reach the $1 million on revenue or the million subscribers or the fancy car, the fancy watch, the big house. But in order for us to get there, we need to celebrate the small wins. And even For some people, 100 pesos might be a small win. For others, might be a life achievement. And it's all about perception. It's all about how we see ourselves, how we see the challenges, how we see our goals, how we see our achievements. But I'll be honest with you. Uh, there was an expectation and also a reality throughout this process. My expectation was I'll I'll start the podcast, and hopefully in a year or two I'll have some momentum. I'll have probably a few thousand subscribers on YouTube, maybe a few thousand monthly listeners, and it would be all great. I know that as long as I care, I know that as long as I have great conversations, things should turn around. And it didn't happen. The podcast has been growing for sure, but not to the levels that I was expecting. And it was hard because I was expecting a linear grow. Like everyone that starts doing something, we start with this delusional way of thinking, which is what gets us started, which is great. Oh, if I do this, then month one will look like this, month six will look like this, month 12, my first year will look like that. Bingo, I'm going for it. But in the world of entrepreneurship, it almost rarely happens that way. And don't get me wrong, it's something that I truly enjoy, something that it fulfills me. But I never expected or never realized that it was going to affect me this much. And affect me not in a bad way, but internally. My entire self concept has changed ever since. The way that I see myself, the way that I connect with others, the way that I carry myself in the world have changed thanks to the podcast. What it started as a way for me to understand myself better. It started for me to know people's stories. It started as something that, hey, I'm curious about. But then every conversation brought something else from inside of me. Every conversation taught me something new about myself. And then I transform myself into this person that now it operates at a whole different level than 2 years ago when I started this podcast. And yes, it's true that when we do some entrepreneurship thing and we start a new business, it's almost like personal development on crack, right? It's wild. It's literally wild how much of our inner demons and shadows and traumas have to come out for us to address and keep moving forward. Because the version of ourselves that have everything already exists. We just need to match that reality by understanding, by healing, by processing all of those things that we have been repressing for over the years. Now, having said that, yes, it's been a very fulfilling journey. It's been incredible. It's been wonderful. But also, I need to be honest that the last few months have been probably one of the hardest, at least in this process. In the last 2.5 years, what I've experienced in the last 5, 6 months have been brutal. A lot of ups and downs, a lot of financial uncertainty, career uncertainty, business uncertainty, the burnout, the emotional waves, the longing, the loneliness, and just because the more you work on yourself, especially the kind of conversations I have, because I have conversations with people to understand myself better. So the more I explore my inner world through conversations, the the more I question my path, the more I question my direction, the more I question, did I make the right choice? Because it's been grueling these past few months. And I think that's something that every entrepreneur, anybody who have started something meaningful goes through. It gets to a point where you want to burn it all down. And it's not because you're frustrated, it's not because things don't work out, it's because you're exhausted, because you're putting so much emotional investment in something that matters to you, especially if it feels aligned, especially if it feels like, okay, this is my purpose, this is my meaning. And when things don't, or when things are not working out, when you are in that moment, I don't know if you guys have seen an exponential curve. For a long time, it doesn't move, nothing, 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 and then they hit an inflection point, and it goes like into the moon. As a metaphor, or even analogy, or even another thing in life that works that way is when you plant bamboos for 5 years, nothing happens, and then after 5 years, it shoots up like 20 feet. And we're expecting for this moment, and we are just getting closer and closer. But in the process of getting there, you have this emotional wave, you have this loneliness. It's like many people call it the lonely chapter, when your old friends or friends that are having normal life cannot relate to you, you cannot relate to them, but you still don't have the success, or even you haven't become the person who has the new connections, who has the new group. And you have in this period that, yes, I do have friends for sure, but friends that cannot relate to what I'm doing. I have friends who I value, I treasure, but in this process, I feel completely lonely. And I know I'm not the only one. If you're listening to this and you're going through this, you understand. And there's a moment of longing as well, especially after a divorce, and being single, or being, without a true connection for over 3 years. You start missing those things. And yeah, I mean, it's just part of the process. It just makes it heavier, I would say. And I have moments of clarity, then moments of doubts again, moments of clarity, moments of doubt. And it's just on and on and on and on. And what I've learned is that we have to weather those storms. Those storms are going to be there, and they're training us. They are there for a reason. Now, what the reason is it's just like, well, if we truly want something, then we need to be willing to endure the tough times or the tough weather. One of the insights that I got from this experience was what growth actually feels like. See, growth almost never feels like growth when you're in it. Many times it feels like confusion, doubt, emotional swings. Everything I've experienced literally for the past 6 months on crack, you experience that's actually growth. When you feel lost, you can only see growth when you look back. As people say, hindsight is 2020 for sure. But when I look back who I was in January 2025, which is much different from January 2024, which is entirely different from January 2023. So the transformation and the evolution, the growth have been almost exponentially at an internal level. Now, my reality hasn't matched to it, but I can see myself as a total different person. I've taken more risk, I've taken more leaps, I've 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 really put myself out there in a way that I never imagined before. I've discovered things that I never thought possible. And it all started by taking that first aligned step and following my intuition with the podcast. And when you think that you're regressing, because many times I feel like, well, what if I'm regressing? It feels like I'm regressing. I feel this emotional turmoil. What is happening? What might actually be happening? You're expanding. See, when we feel deeply, when we feel that we're going to get swollen, or we're going to be drawn by our own emotions, that's just our capacity increasing. We're expanding our capacity to hold success, our capacity to hold love, our capacity to hold wealth. But nobody teaches us that. So we freak out, we try to understand, and we try to make meaning out of it. And then we realize, oh, I must be doing something wrong. And we quit, or we change plans, or we just give up. When in reality, we just need to understand how growth works. And in many instances, we won't notice, or we even feel that we're growing, when in reality we are. And as I said earlier, this podcast, it started as something that I do, but then it became who I am, how I think, how I reflect, how I communicate with others. See, my ability to connect with people through conversation, in my mind, was non existent. And the moment I start interviewing people, just following my curiosity, coming up with questions on the flight on many times because I was just curious about that, gave me a glimpse of my son of genius, gave me a glimpse of my true power, gave me a glimpse of my true gift in terms of processing life, in terms of connecting deeply with others. And none of that would have been possible if I hadn't taken that first step of launching and posting that first episode. And it literally, once again, and this is a reflection, the podcast didn't just change how I think. It just didn't change how I connect with others or even how I communicate or how I carry myself. It it literally changed the direction of my life. Because when I started this, I thought I'm going to start the podcast and my goal is to be the best podcaster I can be, grow it as big as I can, and that's it. But something inside of me was telling me, be flexible enough because life might throw you other roads, other opportunities that are deeply aligned with you, but you cannot see yet. And that became keynote speaking. Never, as I said, I used to study for a lot of time. Never imagined I was going to be a keynote speaker, a workshop a facilitator, a coach. All three areas I've explored in the last year and a half, especially in the last year, I've discovered talents literally that I didn't know I had. And it's not I'm calling myself talented in those areas. I'm getting feedback from people that have genuinely told me, dude, you are very talented at this. You're very talented as an interviewer. You're very talented as a speaker. You're very talented as a workshop, a facilitator, and you're an incredible coach. And all of that came by just following that intuition. See, when something started as, maybe I should just pursue that. Maybe I should try that. Maybe I should explore that podcast wise. It extended to this life I have right now, this life I'm building, and none of this was planned. So, what I want to say with this, in this reflection in this journey, sure, the podcast hasn't grown to the point I want it to be now. I've had lots of ups and downs. I have emotional swings. I've doubted myself. I had moments of clarity. I burned myself out. I'm in the middle of a burnout right now. And yet, I don't regret anything. Because the moment I follow my intuition, the moment I start following my intuition and truly listen to that inner voice, my life starts changing radically. And a lot of you, I know that a lot of you are meant for more. I know that a lot of you might not know what to do with your life or might just be stuck in a rut or not have any direction. And I've been there. Trust me. For the majority of my life, I was there. I just I will invite you to just sit with yourself and just ask, what do I truly want? What do I truly want? The answer might not get there immediately, but at least you're giving permission to your subconscious mind to to give you the answer that you might have been repressing unintentionally for years, if not decades. And the moment you have that, the moment that you hear that whisper, follow that. It would come with a lot of fear. It would come with a lot of doubts. It will come with a lot of uncertainty. But the point is to keep uh, going that route, to keep taking those steps until you reach your goal. And last point that I will say for for this, or the last reflection, is I'm redefining consistency for myself. I was someone who grew up with the mindset to always be on. Like that true consistency meant to be always on. I'm tired, I'm pushing. I'm sick, I'm pushing. I don't have energy or creativity, I keep pushing. I don't know. To me, having a day off, 2 days off, resting wasn't a thing. I think mostly out of fear, mostly out of, well, if I stop now, then I'm losing my chances of making it. And I know there are a lot of people out there, the Alex Hormozis of the world, or Grant Cardones, or those people say, keep grinding, keep pushing on. I'm going to outwork you. Sure. But you might burn yourself out before seeing the final product. And I burned myself out 3 times. And there are moments where I just wanted to quit. Moments where I say, I don't have the energy. I don't want to do life anymore. Not killing myself, but I just don't have the energy to carry all this weight because been pushing, 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 no rest. And it's not physically, it's emotionally. It's emotional exhaustion that really kills projects. Not the physical, not the mental, it's the emotional. And what I came to realize, or what I had to learn the hard way, is that I have to show imperfectly. Even if it's 10%, 20%, even if some days are the bare minimum, but at least not to put the pressure on myself to keep pushing and to keep going, because at the end of the day, it will burn you out. It did burn me out. And as I'm closing this episode, as I'm closing this reflection, if you have ever listened even to one episode, thank you. I'm very grateful to be able to do what I'm doing right now, even with all the uncertainty, even with all the fears, even with all the doubts. Once again, I wouldn't change a thing. And if you're at a crossroads in your life, take the path that is whispering you to follow. Trust me, you won't regret it. Because when you follow your intuition, you can never be wrong. So that's my reflection. I hope they enjoyed. I hope that you probably connected or resonated with some of the things that I said. And yeah, I'm taking this moment to just enjoy it, to celebrate it, and to look forward to the next 100 or next 500. So I'll keep doing it, and I hope you follow your dreams too. See you next episode.